The hour for convening having arrived, all members will please report to the floor and take your seats. All members will report to the floor of the House. Mr. Clerk, would you ring the bell? All members will report to the House floor. All members. We are going to have the afternoon roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber, and the clerk will unlock the machines. I think Joseph Gullett did. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. Doorkeepers will please close the doors and keep them closed. Well, good afternoon and happy Valentine's Day. I hope everybody had a great weekend and enjoying today. We will begin our day with scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. Our chaplain this afternoon will be introduced by the lady from the 70th House District, the chair of the Natural Resources and Environment Committee, Chairman Lynn Smith. Chairman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. It's my distinct honor to introduce to you today our minister, Reverend Terry Lemons, and she is a native of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. At the age of 12, she accepted Christ as her Savior. The Lord orders the steps of this anointed pastor, teacher, and counselor. The Bible and the Holy Spirit have guided her life, spiritual growth, and call into the ministry. The Holy Spirit led Pastor Lemons to read Isaiah 61, verse 1. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to preach to the poor, heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and open the prison to those who are bound. She accepted her call to ministry and was commissioned and ordained an elder in full connection by the North Georgia United Methodist Conference, and appointed associate pastor at Cascades United Methodist Church for 8 years. In June 2015, Reverend Lemons was appointed as senior pastor of Noonan Chapel United Methodist Church. She is a member of the North Georgia Board of Ordained Ministries. She served as one of the service coordinators for the 2015 North Georgia Annual Conference. I'm going to read her accomplishments to you right now, but I have a title for her now. After I finish reading all this, I think you will agree with me. She graduated with honors and received her Master of Divinity degree from Gammon Theological Seminary at the Interdenominational Theological Center. She received the Gammon Theological Seminary Highest Female GPA Award and served as the student representative for the Gammon Seminary Board of Trustees. She is a second career commissioned pastor with expertise in administration and health care. She has a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing from the University of Louisiana, Lafayette, Louisiana, a dual master's from Emory University, Atlanta, Georgia, and this one is in the Master of Public Health Administration, and the other is Master of Nursing, Community Health. Pastor Lemons is a board-certified registered nurse and a board-certified primary care family nurse practitioner. With more than 20 years of nursing and administrative experience, she has provided healthcare services at universities where she developed the student health clinics and served students and staff and faculty. There's more. Reverend Terry Lemon's ultimate desire is to be in the perfect will of God by preaching, teaching, and sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. She has served in the pulpit ministry at Cascade as a member of the pastoral leadership team during the Sunday morning worship services. She provided pastoral leadership to the Nurture Division, which includes the following areas: prayer ministry, caregivers ministry, marriage ministry, Christian education, Sunday school discipleship, which is new members, health and wellness, resurrection, and stewardship ministry. Pastor Lemons has served as the speaker at several churches as well, at the Ben Hill Cascade United Methodist Church Marriage Retreat, preacher at churches in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Dallas, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia. She has been cited among outstanding young women of America. Is that any surprise as I've gone through this? Women of America pastor. Lemons finds her joy in sharing the love of Christ. Pastor Lemons is the wife. Her husband passed away last year, so she, like so many here, without their spouses, is moving on and here for us today. They are blessed with one daughter, LaShonda Lewis. I want to read this about Pastor Lemons. In my code has shut down my computer. So, well, here we go. Pastor Lemons led the effort to have the churches and community organizations serve for more than 300 families at her church, the Untitled Chapter, United Methodist Church, days after the tornado. Y'all heard me talk about that last year, March the 25th. We were so devastated by that. Here is one of the organizers and one of the persons to help pull our community together. So she organized area churches, black and white, as well as churches from the United Methodist Council in Atlanta. They all came together with many community organizations to create a drive to help so many people who are victims of this tornado. I finally concluded that the person I'm introducing to you today is what I call a first responder minister. She has had this training through the Lord, and when this tragedy hit my community, there she was. So please join me in welcoming Pastor Lemons. Thank you.
Thank you. Greetings, House Speaker Ralston, Representative Lynn Smith, and all who are gathered here. Please accept my heartfelt gratitude for inviting me to be your chaplain on this Valentine's Day. Thank you for your leadership to the service of the citizens of our great state of Georgia. My aim this afternoon, is to maximize the importance of leading with love, because our Creator is love, and we are to love each other as He loves us. Love calls us to action, as described in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 7, which describes what love is, how to love, and explains what love is not. Now hear these verses, beginning with verse 4. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast, and it is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects. It always trusts, hopes, and perseveres. Love demands action. Sometimes we have to deal with some unpleasant situations which require tough love decisions. However, we have pledged to show our brotherly and sisterly concern in thoughts, in words, and deeds. Our Creator and Sustainer loves us unconditionally. As leaders, we have committed to using our time, our talents, resources, and influence to make life better for all that we serve. Love causes us to be effective, action-oriented leaders who serve all the people with hearts saturated with faith, with hope, and with love. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 reminds us of the importance of our faith, our hope, and our love. Oh, but love is the greatest of these. Today, on this Valentine's Day, we celebrate love. Leaders of the Georgia House of Representatives, those who are in authority in the state of Georgia, any visitors, and all the citizens of Georgia, I invite us to go forth in faith for the future, hope for tomorrow, and choose to share love in all the ways that we can. I want to leave you with this one thought. God, Yahweh, the Lord who is called by many names, wants each of you to know that he loves you very much. Indeed, you are loved. Let us pray. To our Creator, Sustainer, God, great is thy faithfulness to us. Give us your faith, your hope, and your love. Pour out in this legislative body wisdom, integrity, unity, and wise decisions so that they can live in love according to your divine will and your way, to continue to make the state of Georgia a safer and better place to live and work and strive for all of our citizens. Bless these Georgia representatives with your spirit, with your courage, with your joy, with your peace, and protect them from all hurt, harm, or danger. In the majestic name of your Son and our Savior. Amen, amen, and amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Doorkeepers will unlock the doors. Members may greet the chaplain in the South Anteroom. Chair recognizes Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Information and Audits has read the journal of the previous legislative day and found it to be correct. And furthermore, Mr. Speaker, it's better to light a candle than to curse the darkness, a Chinese proverb.
Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. The clerk will read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day.
Mr. Burns, 159th moves finally be established as the order of business during the first part of the period. Unanimous consent. Introduction of bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions. Second reading of bills and resolutions. Reports of standing committees. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions. Morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 1329 by Representative Mathis, the 144th, Bentley, the 139th, Cameron, the 1st, Wade, the 9th, Scoggins, the 14th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 16 and Title 45 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to coroners.
Governmental Affairs.
House Bill 1330 by Representative Smiley, 135th, Carpenter, the 4th, Stevenson, the 164th, Bonner, the 72nd, Gilliard, the 162nd, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 7, Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to imposition rate computation, exemptions, and credits from state income tax.
Ways and
House
Means.
Bill 1331 by Representative Meeks, the 178th, Burns, the 159th, Dickey, the 140th, England, the 116th, Bentley, the 139th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 34 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to labor and industrial relations.
Industry and Labor.
House Bill 1332 by Representative Wilson, the 80th, Beverly, the 143rd, Mitchell, the 88th, and Wilkerson, the 38th. Bill be entitled an act to amend Article 7, Chapter 4, Title 49, the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to medical assistance generally.
Health and Human Services.
House Bill 1333 by Representative Wilson of the 80th, Beverly, the 143rd, Mitchell, the 88th, Wilkerson, the 38th, and Thomas, the 39th. Bill be titled Act to amend Article 2, Chapter 3, Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to justification and excuse.
Judiciary, Non-Civil.
House Bill 1334 by Representative Gunner of the 8th, Smith of the 18th, Washburn of the 141st, Crowell of the 110th, Smith of the 41st, and others. Bill be titled Act to amend Article 10 of Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to ad valorem taxation.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 1335 by Senator Smiley, the 135th, Hughley, the 136th, Buckner, the 137th, and Smith, the 133rd. Bill be titled Act to amend Chapter 4, Title 1 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to holidays and observances.
State Planning and Community Affairs.
House Bill 1336 by Representative Smiley, 135th, Hughley, the 136th, Buckner, the 137th, and Smith, the 133rd. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 7 and Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to regulation of hospitals.
Health and Human Services.
House Bill 1337 by Representative Dukes of the 154th, Green of the 151st, Hobson of the 153rd, Moore of the 90th, Jackson of the 128th. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 5 of Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to homicide.
Judiciary, Non-Civil.
House Bill 1338 by Representative Smith of the 18th, Jenkins the 132nd, Green the 151st, Evans the 57th, Carter the 92nd. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 2 of Title 8 and Title 12 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to solid waste management generally.
Natural Resources and Environment.
House Bill 1339 by Representative Mitchell, the 106th, Robichaud of the 48th, Schofield the 60th, Scott of the 76th, Wilson the 80th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 18 and Title 45 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to state employees' health insurance.
Health and Human Services.
House Resolution 768 by Representative Hawkins, the 27th, Newton, 123rd, Cooper, the 43rd, Williams, the 168th, Green, the 151st, and others. A resolution creating the House Study Committee on expanding long-term care options.
Special Committee on Access to Quality Health Care.
House Resolution 769 by Representative Smiley, 135th, Buckner, 137th, Hughley, 136th, and Smith, the 133rd. A resolution creating a House Study Committee on reciprocal state immunity.
Judiciary.
House Resolution 770 by Representative Scott of the 76th, Holcomb of the 81st, Williams of the 168th, and Davis of the 87th. A resolution creating a House Study Committee on National Guard, Military Reserve, Veteran Resources.
Defense and Veterans Affairs.
House Resolution 771 by Representative Mitchell, the 106th, Scott of the 76th, Clark of the 108th, a resolution honoring the life of SBC Adam L. Harrell.
Transportation.
Senate Bill 281 by Senator Robertson, the 29th, Albers, the 56th, Harper, the 7th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 16 and Title 47 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to Sheriff's Retirement Fund of Georgia.
Retirement.
Senate Bill 343 by Senator Hufstetler, the 52nd, Tillery, the 19th, Orrock, the 36th, Miller, the 49th, Parent of the 42nd, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 47 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to retirement and pension.
Retirement.
Senate Bill 352 by Senator Thompson, the 14th, Albers, the 56th, Hufstetler, the 52nd, Dugan, the 30th, McNeil, the 3rd, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 1 and Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions of professions and businesses.
Regulated industries.
Senate Bill 396 by Senator Goodman, the 8th, Jones, the 22nd, Walker, the 20th, Harper, the 7th, Sims, the 12th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 17 to Title 2 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to Georgia State Nutrition Assistance Program.
Agriculture and Consumer Affairs.
That completes first readers.
Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 1300 by Representative Holmes of the 129th, a bill to amend an act to create the Jasper County Water and Sewer Authority. House Bill 1301 by Representative Hogan of the 179th, Watson of the 172nd, Gamble of the 15th, Bentley of the 139th, Meeks of the 178th, and others. A bill relating to general provisions applicable to counties and municipal corporations. House Bill 1302 by Representative Bonner of the 72nd, Carpenter of the 4th, Lott of the 122nd, Mathiak of the 73rd, McDonald of the 26th, and others. A bill relating to income taxes. House Bill 1303 by Representative Dickey of the 140th, England of the 116th, Perkle of the 155th, Irwin of the 28th, Bentley of the 139th, and others. A bill relating to educational programs. House Bill 1304 by Representative Hawkins of the 27th, Jackson of the 128th, Cooper of the 43rd, Dempsey of the 13th, Gaines of the 117th, and others. A bill relating to health. House Bill 1305 by Representative Neal of the 74th, Mal of the 163rd. A bill relating to the imposition rate computation, exemptions, and credits from state income tax. House Bill 1306 by Representative Hughley of the 136th, Smith of the 133rd, Smyre of the 135th, Williams of the 168th, and Buckner of the 137th. A bill relating to children and youth services. House Bill 1307 by Representative Houston of the 170th. A bill relating to fire protection and safety. House Bill 1308 by Representative Williams of the 148th, Taylor of the 173rd, Gamble of the 15th, Houston of the 170th, Jones of the 25th, and others. A bill relating to insurance. House Bill 1309 by Representative Thomas of the 65th, Schofield of the 60th, Lim of the 99th, Lewis Ward of the 109th. A bill relating to agriculture. House Bill 1310 by Representative Donahue of the 30th, Byrd of the 20th, Gamble of the 15th, Gilligan of the 24th, Cantrell of the 22nd, and others. A bill relating to property insurance. House Bill 1316 by Representative Neal of the 74th and Taylor of the 173rd. A bill relating to insurance. House Bill 1317 by Representative Barr of the 103rd, Wade of the 9th, Montana of the 17th, Barton of the 5th, Donahue of the 30th, and others. A bill relating to elections and primaries. House Bill 1318 by Representative Carter of the 92nd, Beverly of the 143rd, Mitchell of the 88th, Holcomb of the 81st, Bruce of the 61st, and others. A bill relating to general provisions regarding preparation for and conduct of primaries and elections. House Bill 1319 by Representative Werkheiser of the 157th, Wiedauer of the 119th, Gaines of the 117th, Kelly of the 16th, Green of the 151st, and others. A bill relating to Georgia Student Finance Authority. House Bill 1320 by Representative Knight of the 130th, Blackman of the 146th, Williamson of the 115th. A bill relating to revenue and taxation. House Bill 1321 by Representative Burchett of the 176th, Dempsey of the 13th, Hitchens of the 161st, Evans of the 57th, Wilson of the 80th. A bill relating to commerce. House Bill 1322 by Representative Powell of the 32nd, Jones of the 25th, Jaspers of the 11th, Mitchell of the 88th, Buckner of the 137th, and others. A bill relating to public utilities and public transportation. House Bill 1323 by Representative Camp of the 131st, a bill to provide a homestead exemption from Upson County ad valorem taxes. House Bill 1324 by Representative Camp of the 131st, Hawkins of the 27th, Newton of the 123rd, Taylor of the 173rd, Lumsden of the 12th, and others. A bill relating to emergency medical service and insurance. House Bill 1325 by Representative Camp of the 131st, a bill to provide a homestead exemption from Upson County ad valorem taxes. House Bill 1326 by Representative Camp of the 131st, a bill to provide a homestead exemption from Upson County ad valorem taxes. House Bill 1327 by Representative Camp of the 131st, a bill to provide a homestead exemption from Upson County ad valorem taxes. House Bill 1328 by Representative Camp of the 131st, a bill to amend an act to provide a homestead exemption of $10,000 from all Upson County ad valorem taxes. House Resolution 757 by Representative Chokas of the 138th, the resolution honoring the life of Sheriff Horace Irving Snyder and dedicating a mile of road in his memory. House Resolution 758 by Representative Neal of the 74th, the resolution encouraging all employers in Georgia to adopt streamlined job application processes. House Resolution 759 by Representative Neal of the 74th and Gilliard of the 162nd, a resolution urging local law enforcement agencies to establish public safety ambassador units. Senate Bill 231 by Senator Anavarte of the 31st, Payne of the 54th, Parents of the 42nd, Albers of the 56th, Halpin of the 39th, and others, a bill relating to elementary and secondary education. Senate Bill 277 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd, Harper of the 7th, Huffstetler of the 52nd, and Jen of the 47th, a bill relating to carrying and possession of firearms. Senate Bill 340 by Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd, Watson of the 1st, Burke of the 11th, Duggan of the 30th, Owl of the 48th, and others, a bill relating to funding of medical education provided by hospital authorities and designated teaching hospitals. Senate Bill 358 by Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd, Thompson of the 14th, Harbison of the 15th, Robertson of the 29th, and Devarte of the 31st, and others, a bill relating to the Georgia Public Safety Training Center. Senate Bill 361 by Senator Walker III of the 20th, Harbison of the 15th, Mullis of the 53rd, Cowsert of the 46th, Alberts of the 56th, and others, a bill relating to income taxes. Senate Bill 453 by Senator Kennedy of the 18th, a bill to amend an act known as the Macon Water Authority Act. Senate Bill 457 by Senator Burns of the 23rd and Anderson of the 24th, a bill to amend an act providing for the consolidation of Richmond County and the city of Augusta. Senate Bill 458 by Senator Burns of the 23rd and Anderson of the 24th, a bill to amend an act regulating public instruction for the county of Richmond. Senate Bill 462 by Senator Summers of the 13th, a bill to amend an act reconstituting the Board of Education of Lee County, through second readers.
Reports of standing committees, the clerk will read.
Representative Rick Jaspers, the 11th District Chairman of the Committee on Transportation, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Transportation has had a consideration the following resolution of the House. It's instructed me to report same back to the House. The following recommendation, House Resolution 467, do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Rick Jaspers, the 11th District Chairman. Representative Jan Tankersley, the 160th District Chairman of the Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Locals, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Locals had in consideration the following bills of the House and the Senate and instructed me to report the same back to the House. The following recommendations. House Bill 1250 do pass by substitute. House Bill 1299 do pass. House Bill 1311 do pass. House Bill 1312 do pass. House Bill 1313 do pass. House Bill 1314 do pass. House Bill 1315 do pass. Senate Bill 406 do pass. Senate Bill 407 do pass. Senate Bill 409 do pass. Senate Bill 410 do pass. Senate Bill 411 do pass. Senate Bill 412 do pass. Senate Bill 413 do pass. Senate Bill 416 do pass. Senate Bill 417 do pass. Senate Bill 418 do pass. Senate Bill 422 do pass. Senate Bill 423 do pass. Senate Bill 424 do pass. Senate Bill 425 do pass. Senate Bill 426 do pass. Senate Bill 427 do pass. Senate Bill 428 do pass. Senate Bill 429 do pass. Senate Bill 432 do pass. Senate Bill 433 do pass. Senate Bill 434 do pass. Senate Bill 447 do pass. Senate Bill 450 do pass. Senate Bill 451 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Jan Tankers of the 160th District Chairman. That completes the reading of the reports of standing committees.
Okay, we're going on to the local calendar. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills. If there is no objection, we will vote on the local calendar as a whole with a recorded vote. Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. The clerk will read the local calendar.
House Bill 1250 by substitute by Representative Drenner of the 85th DeKalb County. House Bill 1299 by Representative Leverett of the 33rd Elbert County. House Bill 1311 by Representative Burchett of the 176th Lanier County. House Bill 1312 by Representative Houston of the 170th Berrien County. House Bill 1313 by Representative Burchett of the 176th Atkinson County. House Bill 1314 by Representative Camp of the 131st Upson County. House Bill 1315 by Representative Burchett of the 176th Atkinson County. Senate Bill 406 by Senator Hickman of the 4th Effingham County. Senate Bill 407 by Senator Hickman of the 4th Effingham County. Senate Bill 409 by Senator Payne of the 54th Whitfield County. Senate Bill 410 by Senator Payne of the 54th Gordon County. Senate Bill 411 by Senator Anna Duarte of the 31st Haralson County. Senate Bill 412 by Senator Anna Duarte of the 31st Polk County. Senate Bill 413 by Senator Anna Duarte of the 31st Polk County. Senate Bill 416 by Senator Tillery of the 19th Telfair County. Senate Bill 417 by Senator Harper of the 7th Berrien County. Senate Bill 418 by Senator Harper of the 7th Berrien County. Senate Bill 422 by Senator Goodman of the 8th Lowndes County. Senate Bill 423 by Senator Goodman of the 8th Lowndes County. Senate Bill 424 by Senator Goodman of the 8th Brooks County. Senate Bill 425 by Senator Goodman of the 8th Lanier County. Senate Bill 424 by Senator Goodman of the 8th Lanier County. Senate Bill 427 by Senator Goodman of the 8th Clinch County. Senate Bill 428 by Senator Goodman of the 8th Clinch County. Senate Bill 429 by Senator Goodman of the 8th Brooks County. Senate Bill 432 by Senator Burns of the 23rd Screven County. Senate Bill 433 by Senator Burns of the 23rd Screven County. Senate Bill 434 by Senator Burns of the 23rd Warren County. Senate Bill 447 by Senator Burns of the 23rd Glasscock County. Senate Bill 450 by Senator Strickland of the 17th Newton County. Senate Bill 451 by Senator Strickland of the 17th Newton County.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on the local calendar? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bills? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall these bills now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bills on the local calendar will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of the bills on the local calendar. The ayes are 153, the nays are 6. These bills, having received the requisite constitutional majority, are therefore passed. What purpose does Chairman Tankersley rise?
Mr. Speaker, I rise to make a motion.
State your motion.
I move that we immediately transmit the local calendar to the Senate.
Chairman of the committee has moved that the bills that were just passed on the local calendar be immediately transmitted to the Senate. Is there objection to the lady's motion? Hearing none, it is so ordered. Okay, we're going on now to morning orders. Going on to morning orders due to the, we got several bills on the rules calendar, and I think we've got committee meetings, so I'm going to limit morning orders to 1 minute. Today, Chair recognizes the leader of the Minority Caucus, Leader Beverly, for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is a very special day because it's Valentine's Day, but more importantly, it's my mother's birthday. Thank you. As you can see, every woman in the house, I have given y'all a small token of appreciation for who you are, because my mother is actually in Atlanta. She's in my office in 609. The reason why I brought her here from Baltimore is because during Thanksgiving, she said, I haven't seen you in 2 years. I said, I just saw you. The pandemic. Ma, come on down for your birthday. So y'all say happy birthday to my mother. Thank you, ladies, for being wonderful. And happy Valentine's Day. Happy birthday, Mom.
Chair recognizes Chairman Bennett for a morning order. I'm sorry, Representative Bennett. I gave you a promotion there. Representative Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker. I'll take that chairmanship when you're ready.
There are days you might get one.
Well, today I rise. On the 8th of February, I stood in recognition of my dad's birthday, and today I stand in remembrance of his homegoing. One of the things in Black History Month that I neglected, I didn't have the time to put on there, was that my dad was an activist. He was a member of the PTA, NAACP, AFL-CIO, the president of the labor union for the American Paper Company for a number of years. And so I am proud to be his offspring and to recognize him today. So thank you very much to my colleagues in the House. On yesterday, you may be seated. On yesterday, my church, many of you know that I pastor a church in Douglasville, and my young people recognized Black History Day. And so I was so proud to have my young people remind us that our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. So thank you so much. That's a quote from Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King, and if I'm given the opportunity to come back, I'll read some of the other things our young people shared with us on Black History. Thank you very much, and I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Representative Wade for a morning order.
Thank you, Speaker. I come to you today as a colleague that's very thankful for Valentine's Day, not just to recognize that of romantic love that we all have with our loved ones or that special person, but also that of the creed to love thy neighbor, that we are all equals, that we're all here as brothers and sisters. And I want to tell you, I want to apologize because I try to be articulate, and I failed to do so when I made a parliamentary inquiry, and I recognized that we had fully funded QBE in this state. I'd like to also thank every single person on the opposite side, the Democrats in this room that voted for our budget that fully funded education. Yes, it was under leadership, but we're all brothers and sisters, and I know that we all want to invest in that education. And I'll leave this with you that an 8-year-old gave me this morning before she gave to school, and I think it will stand. From the great philosopher Olaf. It says, together we're strong. Love you all. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Mitchell for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I will start with saying Happy Valentine's Day to Emer Vigfusson, because otherwise I will be in trouble. But I also, I was so hopeful today that when I asked for this morning order, what I would be able to remind folks about was an FDA hearing that was scheduled for tomorrow for COVID vaccines for children under 5. But science does not always follow the prescribed process, and that hearing is delayed to wait for data from the third vaccine dose in the series for children under 5, like rotavirus, like DTaP, Hep B, polio, and others. However, today I do rise to reorient us all where we are in the time of COVID. Remember that only 1 in 5 children 5 to 9 has been vaccinated in Georgia, less than 1 in 2 children between 10 and 19, and more than 99% of our children under 5 remain unvaccinated for COVID. Remember our immunocompromised colleagues and friends. And remember our new post-pandemic idea of risk is collective, and that taking care of our communities is going to involve more active effort from here on out. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Representative Mallow for a morning order. He waves. Chair recognizes Representative Carter for a morning order.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Speaker Roston. The month of February is the month where we celebrate love, and of course today is Valentine's Day. But on yesterday, on February the 13th, we celebrated Galentine's Day, and that's the day when the gal pals get together. So all of the ladies, remember, it's okay when we get together with our friends. Happy belated Galentine's Day. Speaker Ross, I yield the will.
That completes our morning orders. We're going on now to the rules calendar. Going on to the rules calendar. The clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1134.
House Bill 1134 by Representative Frustration to the 104th and others to be entitled An Act to Amend Code Section 1615-4, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to participation in criminal gang activity prohibited. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Judiciary and Non-Civil, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Just a moment. All right. Let's give the presenters in the well our attention. If you need to have a conversation, please take them outside. Let me remind the members of the House before we start the rules calendar that the Rules Committee has limited debate to no longer than 1 hour on all of the measures on the calendar. The time is to be allocated at the discretion of the chair, and I will allocate it equally to both sides, 30 minutes to each side, which does not include the initial presentation, the minority report, or the chairman's time. Chair recognizes Chairman F. Stration to present House Bill 1134.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I bring to you today House Bill 1134 with a very important message for us to send to all Georgians, that this General Assembly cares about keeping them safe and that public safety is a real priority of ours. Let me begin by giving you some background. In Georgia, the Gang Investigators Alliance has provided some estimates in law enforcement. There was a meeting of the Attorney General's Gang Task Force last Wednesday where some of these numbers were presented. There are currently over 1,500 criminal street gangs in the state of Georgia and over 71,000 active gang members across the state. And this one really stuck out to me. They estimate that 60% of all violent crime that is committed in the state of Georgia is gang motivated. When you think about a majority of violent criminal offenses being related to gang involvement, it really makes clear that addressing the gang issue is a key to addressing violent crime. We, of course, believe that all Georgians deserve to be safe, and your vote today in favor of House Bill 1134 is your way to demonstrate that. To address the rising issue of gang crimes, the General Assembly has appropriated for additional resources for the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, which includes a dedicated gang task force under GBI Director Vic Reynolds. That task force has been in place and has been making cases. In fact, the GBI has brought 493 cases in 2020 and 553 cases in 2021. Those are investigated cases. But still, providing those investigations so that those offenses can be prosecuted is very important. Now, a gang prosecution unit has been proposed for this year. In fact, that prosecution unit is needed, and with this legislation, it would apply under the Attorney General's office with concurrent jurisdiction to prosecute gang crimes along with local DAs across the state. It would be restricted to the criminal gang statute for these prosecutions, and we have similar concurrent jurisdiction for anti-human trafficking laws. So the AG is already empowered to prosecute anti-human trafficking along with DAs, and we're just extending similar treatment. In fact, using much of the law as it applies to the human trafficking here in this proposal. Now, the proposed budget, which is going to be coming before us, the 2023 budget, includes in the recommendation 12 additional prosecutors for the Attorney General and over $1.3 million to support this new effort. Ultimately, what we're seeing is the GBI can investigate and make these cases, but we need prosecutors who can work in collaboration with local DAs to actually prosecute these offenses, who have support staff in the form of post-certified investigators who can help to serve subpoenas, be present for interviews, and then ultimately present these cases in court before a jury. So under this legislation, I would just say there's a few key takeaways that maybe you can consider. First of all, gangs are multi-jurisdictional. A gang doesn't just stop at the border of the county or the judicial circuit. If they're operating and their membership is operating, say, along or in a certain region of the state, involvement from the state is not only appropriate, it's really needed because of the nature of the types of crimes that we're seeing in combating gangs. Second of all, collaboration with local DAs is critical. Prosecuting these cases, and y'all may know I'm a former assistant district attorney myself, the expertise required to prosecute these offenses is really specialized. I mean, you have to know a lot of, you have to have specific information to investigate these cases and prosecute them because because that expertise helps to identify certain aspects of gang involvement. And third, I think this is important to notice. I've met with Commissioner Timothy Ward of the Georgia Department of Corrections this year and discussed the fact that, he told me that it's estimated that 14,000 people currently incarcerated in the Georgia prison system have gang affiliation. And we heard in the gang meeting, that gang task force meeting last week, that many times non-gang affiliated individuals, when they get to prison, then are approached by a gang about becoming involved in that gang. And so the need to address gang activity within the prison system is critically important. And this task force, this prosecutor task force under the Attorney General's office will be able to prosecute those cases. Many times our prisons are in rural parts of the state, and the need to have prosecutor support to prosecute those crimes is significant. An AG task force that can address gang crimes within the prison system is going to be incredibly helpful. Now, there's two letters that are on your desk here today, which I direct your attention to. There's a letter from the Georgia Chamber of Commerce. This is a scorecard issue that they've noticed, that they've noted, and then there's a letter from the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce. And some might ask, this is a law enforcement bill. Why is the business community weighing in on this? Public safety is critical to all Georgians across the state, and when you have legislation that is going to impact the safety of our citizens, that's important to the business community, just like everyone else. Now, at the risk of jumping too far ahead, I understand there's a minority report on this, and then also I saw paperwork that was put out on the desk today, which is in a different subject matter than the minority report is written. Let me just go ahead and try to get out in front on some of this so that you have all the facts. The bottom line is there have been circumstances where new DAs who were elected in 2020 have asserted that they have a conflict of interest in certain cases. Maybe they were affiliated with a previous criminal defense firm where they feel that they can't prosecute certain cases because it's a conflict of interest. Well, there's a procedure in place for notifying the Attorney General of those conflicts, and that procedure has been followed. And what is apparently attempting to be done here is to inject some very case-specific circumstances from local jurisdictions in a few parts of our state to try to influence your vote on this bill. All right, the first thing you're going to see, the top letter, it looks, that was put out by a member of the House, it's on your desk today, is out of Macon, all right, out of Bibb County and the judicial circuit there concerning a prosecution and a request for assistance due to conflict of interest, as alleged. You'll see in the letter that was put out, 12 different DAs were requested to be conflict counsel, and they all declined in that circumstance. And that bill, the information I've been given is that bill of indictment has been dismissed. That case is not even pending as I'm here before you today. I believe the letter's dated from last fall. So that is, I would submit to you an unfair, an inexact basis to argue that this legislation shouldn't be passed. There's also in the paperwork a letter from a judge in Augusta concerning issue there. What happened was when the district attorney was elected to represent the judicial circuit there, there was a pending 54 charge gang indictment, including 17 gang members. And in addition to that case, the newly elected district attorney there, I say newly elected, but in 2020, issued a letter asserting a conflict in 80 cases, which spanned 800 pages. And the daunting number of conflicts alleged and the impact to that judicial circuit was substantial and continues to be now. And they are still dealing with that in Augusta. There are stats as to the number of conflict cases which are submitted to the Attorney General each year. In 2021, there were 486 conflict cases like this submitted. If you average the previous 19 years, it was only 126 cases per year. What am I saying? I'm saying that in 2021 alone, there was a 385% increase in the number of conflict cases sent to the Attorney General's office. And while we're talking about Augusta, that specific situation was sent to 5 other DAs asking if they would serve as the conflict district attorney to prosecute those cases, and they declined. And when you're asked as a DA to serve as conflict prosecutor and you refuse, you can't be forced to do it. So they have to agree to take it on. So it's a very difficult situation that has occurred there in Augusta. To make matters worse, the Attorney General's office has been restricted despite all of their important work to be done. They've had financial constraints in just simply not having enough prosecutors to try to intervene particularly with a large increase in conflict cases that have been submitted. So I would submit to you that the arguments you're going to hear in a moment really go to my point, which is we need greater funding, we need more prosecutors in the Attorney General's office so that justice can be served. And having prosecutors with specialized knowledge in anti-gang offenses is all the more reason to support this legislation. I think the issue here is very clear. We all talk about ensuring public safety of Georgians. With your vote yes on this bill, you can really demonstrate that. We have the ability to put prosecutors on the cases that are causing violence across the state, and to work in a multi-jurisdictional fashion, and to work in collaboration with local DAs who need the support and need the help. So I'd encourage your favorable consideration of the legislation. Mr. Speaker, I'd be happy to answer a few questions.
You have questions if you care to yield.
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Chairman Setzler to your right for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Appreciate your bringing this bill. I want to just clarify for our members, isn't it true that the Attorney General is the senior law enforcement officer that's elected in this state by the citizens? Is that not true?
Yes, sir. That's true.
And isn't it further true, this bill simply gives concurrent jurisdiction. This in no way takes away jurisdiction from the locals, but gives the Attorney General, duly elected by the voters, concurrent jurisdiction if their expertise and their statewide resources are needed by the locals, or if locals, for all the reasons you highlighted, are not in best position to prosecute these multi-county cases.
Yes, sir, that's exactly right. This takes nothing away from a local DA's ability to prosecute a criminal offense. This just allows the Attorney General to work, frankly, in concert with those local DAs to ensure that these gang offenses are being prosecuted and that there is a opportunity for collaboration to address this very serious issue.
Appreciate that clarification.
Thank you.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Tyler Paul Smith to your right for a question.
Will the gentleman yield for a question?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that HB 1134 language was modeled after the human trafficking bill that we passed here in this body a few years ago, giving him the authority to prosecute these type of cases, and that legislation has resulted in 107 victims being rescued last year and 15 indictments last month alone?
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yes, you're exactly right, Representative. We have a great track record from the anti-human trafficking prosecutor working in the Attorney General's office currently, working with the GBI. We're talking about actual lives being saved, victims being identified and located, and you're exactly right. The track record is there to really show how effective this is.
And isn't it further true that this bill before us today will undoubtedly save countless Georgians from criminal gang crimes?
That's exactly true. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative McLeod to your left for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Why is this a scorecard issue for the Chamber of Commerce?
The issue of protecting Georgians is important to the business community, just like it should be to all of us. If Georgians don't feel safe, or if visitors to our state don't feel safe because of issues concerning gang crime perpetrated for the purpose of intimidating, causing violence, causing terror within our communities, it impacts all of us, and it's something that we should all take seriously. And I applaud the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce for their support.
Does the gentleman further yield?
Yes, ma'am. One more.
My specific question is, why is it a scorecard issue for the Chamber?
The Chamber of Commerce has a policy that you'll see on their letter of telling you if it's a scorecard issue. You'll have to talk to them about how the ins and outs of that works. But as I've said, protecting Georgians is important to all of us across the state, should be important to all of us across the state, and the business community is no different.
Chair recognizes Representative Meeks to your right for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that our vibrant business climate will be further enhanced by pro-public safety legislation such as this?
That's exactly right. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I know there are some speakers lined up on this, so I will yield the well.
You have a number of questions, and I'm not trying to get you to take one, but one of them is the majority leader of the House.
I'll yield for his question.
I didn't want to see you never mind.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes the majority leader for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to get down to the simplicity of the facts on what we're doing here. Is it not true that the folks that we support every day, the men and women of law enforcement, risk their lives to go out and apprehend, investigate and apprehend these violent crime, these violent gang members that commit these crimes?
Yes, sir. That's absolutely true.
And is it, the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
And is it further not true that we're just giving one more tool in the toolbox of law enforcement to protect Georgians, not just the business climate, but the people of Georgia, to make sure we take these people and prosecute them, whether they be out in society, whether they're impacting prisoners in the prison system, and make sure the rule of law is what we're ruled by in Georgia. And this is good legislation that we want to make sure we provide the Attorney General's office and law enforcement in this state a means to protect Georgians. Is that not true?
Yes, Mr. Leader, that's exactly right. And I'll just say, in our anti-gang task force meeting that we had last week, this legislation was referenced as the top priority for law enforcement around the room to see that this legislation passed. I thank you, Leader, for your question, and I yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. We have other members that wish to be heard on the measure, and the chair recognizes Representative Bodie to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in opposition today to HB 134. Let me be crystal clear that the reason why, because I want to get straight to it, the reason why that Macon RICO case was dismissed is because the state was not there to represent the state of Georgia on that gang case. The AG's office did not appear. So now, let me move forward. Members, I rise today in opposition to HB 1134. It's crystal clear that my caucus, the Georgia House Democratic Caucus, nor myself condone gang activities or gang crimes. In fact, in 2002, my family felt the deep pain and sorrow of my aunt being brutally murdered by random act of violence. So I know how it feels to get that call. All crimes, including gang crimes, should be prosecuted locally by local elected district attorneys based on the powers and protections of the U.S. and state constitution. However, HB 1134 did not address the root issue of how to efficiently and successfully prosecute gang cases in Georgia. Let me turn your attention to the letter dated November 17, 2021, which I refer to as document number 1 on your desk. The letter is addressed to a Bibb County Superior Court judge from the Deputy Attorney General. I won't read the entire letter from the Deputy Attorney General line by line. However, I encourage you, and I encourage every member to read the Deputy AG's letter in its entirety. This was a 16 co-defendant case, 27 count indictment, and it was a very complex RICO case that involved bribes, false statements, money laundering, and racketeering. The RICO case was indicted in December 2020, and the then DA from Macon Bibb conflicted out of the case. And again, that case was dismissed because the Attorney General did not show up for a hearing. If you read the letter from November the 17th of 2021, it stated the state is not going to be appearing today in court at 2 p.m. So, I want to turn your attention to OCGA 15-18-5, which is referred to as document number 2. Number 4. It states that the state attorney general's responsibility in conflict cases is to request the services thereof or thereafter to appoint a district attorney, a solicitor general, or retired prosecutor attorney as provided in Code Section 15-18-30, or designate an attorney from the Department of Law, or appoint a competent attorney to act as district attorney pro temp in place of the district attorney. So the base of that means in this particular case, being that no private attorney would take the case making, because it was no resources left, being that no DA in the surrounding jurisdiction would take that case because they have their own cases. And you heard the Chief Justice state last week, the backlog of cases. So they had their own cases. So being that no other DA would take the case, it sounds like to me that the buck stops with the AG's office. We just heard one of the members ask a question or state that the Attorney General is the chief law enforcement officer. So it sounds like the buck stops with him. So based on OCGA 15-18-5, it was only one option left. The Attorney General should have designated one of his law department attorneys to go down to Macon to prosecute that RICO case. However, in the Deputy Attorney's letter to the Bibb County Superior Court judge, and I quote, "Our office does not represent the state of Georgia in this matter, and therefore cannot appear on its behalf in court." The Deputy Attorney General's letter was dated for the same day, again, that the hearing was to be scheduled at 2 p.m. In my opinion, the real and immediate need of the Attorney General's office is to address the backlog of DA conflict cases across the state. This year, which is 2021, last year, the Attorney General's office will receive nearly 700 requests for appointment of conflict counsel. That's what the AG, the Deputy AG, said in his letter to the court, November 17, 2021. Nearly 700 requests for assistance from the district attorneys on gang-related cases. I don't see that. I have not seen any other requests from DAs about gang cases because they are prosecuting those cases. And when they have the opportunity or the need, they reach out to ask for assistance from the AG's office and from the GBI. So members of this House, HB 1134 is all about perception. This is because any DA, as I stated right now, in the state of Georgia can ask for assistance from the AG's office. So I would say to you, 1134 is merely a bill that as soon as it's passed out of Georgia House of Representatives, is going to be mailed, delivered, and coming to a post office and mailbox near you. This is all about perception, and it's not about protecting Georgians. If we want to protect Georgians, give the local DAs the resources. Give the local law enforcement officers the resources. Give the Department of Corrections the resources to address gangs, and also give our public defenders the resources to represent in the court of law anyone that's been convicted of any crime. With that, Mr. Speaker, because of the time constraints, I will yield the well at this time without any questions. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative McLaurin to speak to the bill.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm delighted to be up here today to see everybody. We got the governor's bill. We got two chambers, one of which is going to scorecard it. We've got a number of law enforcement across the state asking for it, some. I've thrown a snowball into an oven before, but this is about as hot as it gets. But we're up here today because Chairman Estration's right about the first thing he said at the top of his presentation, which is that we in this chamber want to send Georgians a message that we care about public safety and we care about gang violence in community. Today's Valentine's Day, the day of love. Showing love is hard. Showing love takes attention, it takes focus. So does addressing a really difficult, complex problem. This bill is political cover, I was kind of, rich that the presenter of the bill said that we were going to try to distract from the issues by addressing specific cases as opposed to generalizations about gangs and violence and, statewide, what people want. We put 2 letters in a packet on your desk today, one regarding Macon, which my colleague spoke to, and 2, the Augusta Judicial Circuit, which obviously the chairman spoke to as well, but the issue being that you've got these complex gang cases that, again, if you say to a strapped local DA, hey, you want to take this case, and a bunch of people turn you down, they're tough cases. They're big, tough cases. But then you've got people in jail who, by the way, in this country are still innocent till proven guilty, always worth that reminder. They're in jail for years. The local conflict that the DA has been notified by at least a year. And the Attorney General's office still has not responded to the call. Representative Bodie went through that statute with you, 1518-5, I think it is, right? And that statute presents 3 options for what to do when there's a conflict. You ask a DA, you ask a private attorney, which, by the way, in that Macon letter, the AG's office admits the reason that they don't ask private attorneys is because they don't have the budget for it. I know how expensive some of the DC lawyers are that they hire to litigate hot-button social issues nationally, and it'll run your budget right out. So the AG doesn't have the resources to hire somebody else. They can't compel a DA to do it. So what is that second option? The Department of Law. You will not find one reference in that Macon letter, again, from the Attorney General's office to the court. It's a big deal every time you write the court. You want to be as honest as you can. There's no reference in that letter to even the possibility that the Department of Law could take the case unto itself. Now, let me go ahead and acknowledge something. It may be that these 12 attorneys, imagine like Avengers music and, Marvel lighting and cut scenes, and those 12 attorneys, man, you just put in those 12 and now we've solved all our ills. Give them a few peace officers, dedicated gangs, and now we'll show up for court hearings as opposed to letting RICO cases get dismissed. Maybe that's the magic bullet. I don't think it's the magic bullet. I think the issue we're dealing with here is one of political will. The problem is that Attorney General Chris Carr doesn't have political will. He's got political won't. And giving him 12 more prosecutors and a handful of cops is not going to change the culture of that office. The culture of an office which, y'all know the political legacy, he worked for a really good man. But he was never equipped to do this job. And unfortunately, this assembly is being asked to cover for a political failure by an attorney general who is not qualified and not capable of serving in this capacity sufficiently. Those are really harsh words. And I understood that coming up here, I was going to say something that people didn't like to hear. But the reason I say it is because this is my last year in the House, right? Y'all know I'm making a completely terrible and inexplicable decision to run for the other chamber. I want to acknowledge the truth where it's true, right? But the issue is, I don't want to leave here unless I ask this chamber to think critically about the way that it approaches criminal legal issues. To think critically about the moves we make. When we move authority around, we add concurrent jurisdiction here, add cops here. There's a lot of buzzwords in this whole exchange, right? Multi-jurisdictional and complex cases and force multiplier. But you can't multiply force if you're not willing to bring force in the first place. I understand why the chambers want you to vote for this. It's because they need a narrative, they need a story to tell their constituents about what we're doing about crime. And crime is hard, and the chamber's not in a position over an hour of eggs and issues to address the social determinants of crime, to address systemic poverty, to address a lack of health care, a lack of opportunity, job training, access to all kinds of the basics in life that keep somebody out of this situation. That's a longer conversation that's really difficult to have. So instead, the chamber says, both chambers in this case, y'all do us a solid by giving us a talking point to tell the businesses we represent. And that is it. That is all you will do with this bill. And it may be a message To the chairman's original point, it may be a message to Georgians that you care about public safety, but stories can be harmful, and there are two stories here. One is the story that lets the AG off the hook for letting these conflict cases sit and defendants get dismissed, the indictments to go away because of lack of political will. But the second story is that this criminal legal system does anything to make this problem better. You know, Chairman of Administration testified in committee in a very lengthy explanation of this bill that the DJJ experiences the following problem. When an individual, a kid, a child, goes into a DJJ facility, within 48 hours they're recruited to join a gang. Can you imagine? 48 hours, children recruited to join a gang. So the question is, if you don't want gangs in the state of Georgia, then why do we send kids to those facilities? We are manufacturing gangs in DJJ, in DOC. But when we have budget hearings on those topics, we hear sunshine and roses. Well, we had 97% turnover last year, but this year it's 90%, so we made a huge improvement, says the DJJ. Or GDC, which says the burning question on everybody's minds is, do we have sufficient cell phone blocking technology to make sure that people incarcerated can't send pictures of the horrific unconstitutional conditions that they live in to outside people to advocate on their behalf? Those are the pressing issues that we hear at the budget hearings for these broken systems. But now we have a gang bill and the chamber wants it, and so does the governor. So we're going to vote. It's going to be super predictable. But if this chamber wants a prayer, I'll say it again, of following in the footsteps of Governor Deal and the legacy of criminal legal reform in this country, if we want a prayer of addressing the spike in violent crime stemmed by social unrest and conditions of mental health that this chamber is addressing otherwise, thank God, from 2020 on, if we want a prayer of doing that, we got to get our story straight. The story is not that 12 prosecutors will save the world. The story is that we've got one hammer that we use for every nail, and the truth is that we don't even know how to use it or have the political will to use it in the cases where you're not watching. So let's add the prosecutors, let's add the jurisdiction, let's fund everything. That's what we're going to do today. And let's pray that our children find a way to navigate the system we've created for them and they don't end up in a gang. Mr. Speaker, with that, I yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. We have a minority report. I understand that it is being waived, which brings us to the chairman's time, total of 20 minutes. Chair recognizes the chair of the committee, Chairman Burchett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I won't be up here for 20 minutes, colleagues. I just want to, sitting there listening to my colleagues speak, it was hard to come up with an argument because I think we're on the same side here. My colleagues were arguing for reform in the conflict appointment statute. We're not in that statute. What we're doing here is simply adding another tool to the toolbox. We're giving concurrent jurisdiction to our AG to be able to prosecute gang cases. That's it. That's what we're doing. And to my colleague's point about the systematic changes, I say we could probably agree on some of those things. Bring a bill that fixes those things, and let's start a conversation. But just to come up here and say, you know, we don't like your idea, when you're not even arguing against a bill that we have before us, I mean, that's not persuasive to me. I do take exception with one thing. What we do here does matter, and the bills we pass do matter. This legislation is structured just like the legislation for our human trafficking legislation, and I think that has made an impact in Georgia. So I take exception with saying that what we're doing here doesn't make a difference. That's all I have to say, folks. This is a bill that gives the AG the ability to prosecute gang crimes in Georgia. And you all know, we have gangs in Georgia, and they're not isolated to one jurisdiction. They're not. They're not isolated to South Georgia, North Georgia, West Georgia, or East Georgia. They're all over the state. Why is it a bad idea to give the AG the ability to prosecute this? You ask yourself that. It's not a bad idea. It is not a bad idea. And we're just overcomplicating the problem. The problem is simple, and the solution is simple. If we want to talk about systematic change, bring a bill. I'm going to, Mr. Speaker, yield the rest of my time to Chairman Efstration. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Efstration for the balance of the chairman's time.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Quite some speeches. I will just say this. You know, I'm not ignorant to the fact that it's an election year, but I've only heard one political speech from this well. I've only heard one speech which seemed to me to be more about demonizing leadership than about really getting to the heart of these issues. You know, I worked as a felony prosecutor, and what I think sometimes is removed from this beautiful chamber, from folks who maybe get really into the politics of the moment, the debate, the fact that maybe there is an issue with Macon, and it wasn't brought to me before today. Never brought that issue to me before today. But you know, there are law enforcement officers across the state that wake up early in the morning, that stay out late at night investigating these types of crimes. They put on bulletproof vests and they go out to protect you and me. There are prosecutors who take less money than they could make at a private law firm because they care about public safety in their community and they care about doing something to stop organized crime. That's what we're talking about here. It's organized crime. And I submit to you that it is a disservice to those people who risk their own lives, their own families' lives, knowing that they're taking on these types of offenders. It's a disservice to try to wrap that in politics and to try to get down here and think this is an issue worthy of having back and forth and dropping letters on desks the morning of. Well, since Macon's been brought up, I've had a chance to look into it a little bit further. It was not a gang case. It was not a gang case. It was a RICO gambling case. And it was dismissed after the indictment was improperly drawn by the previous DA, who's no longer in office, or his staff, and after 12 different other prosecutors refused to take the appointment. Ultimately, the court did dismiss the bill of indictment. To assert that that is a failure of this Attorney General's office, I'd submit to you, is disingenuous. And it's certainly not applicable to the issue that's before us here today. Now, to just wrap this up, I mean, you know, the issue that we're talking about here is about public safety for our state. And I would submit to you, think about those investigators. Think about those folks who are having to really make these cases, be able to present them to members of the public so that you can get a conviction in front of a jury. Think about the risk, the burden that could be on you, and the obligation that we have to recognize that expertise and to support public safety in our state by passing measured legislation like this. I'd urge your favorable consideration of House Bill 1134 because this isn't about politics. This is about keeping Georgians safe, and nothing could be more clear, certainly to me. I yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on House Bill 1134? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Well, let's see here before we lock it down. What purpose does Representative Maynor rise?
Parliamentary
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that I myself, as a victim in a county, that when I went to my district attorney for something, and when the APD went to the district attorney for something, that the county attorney said, no, I am not going to prosecute that, even though the law enforcement asked her to?
If the lady so states. What purpose does Chairman Newton rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, isn't it true that much of our illegal opiate trade, especially including the deadly fentanyl overdose epidemic we're going through, is directly related to the gang activity, and that this bill will help give an additional tool to fight that side as well as all the others?
I'm sure the gentleman believes that to be true. What purpose does Representative Holly rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is it not true that for as much of us who appreciate our colleague, Representative Maynor, and certainly for her being able to share here with all of us about the pains of the system, that our prosecutors are already able to prosecute well, and our Attorney General can also prosecute? All it takes is the will of the Attorney General to actually prosecute these cases, rather than going to rallies in DC to watch officers get beaten with the American flag.
All right, we're going to lock the machines down. On the passage of House Bill 1134, the yea ayes are 101, the nays are 56. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 963.
House Bill 963 by Representative Parrish of the 158th and others to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 13 and Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia entitled relating to controlled substances so as to change certain provisions relative to Schedule 1 controlled substances and Schedule 4 controlled substances. This bill having referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman Parrish to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, House Bill 963 is just the annual update for the Georgia Controlled Substance Act. Most of you will remember that we do this each year and we update just like this. The update list comes to us from the Georgia Drugs and Narcotics and the GBIs. And as you know, our law enforcement folks have a really tough job out there. I hope you'll join me in passing 963 so that we can help our law enforcement agencies be more effective and more efficient in their work. Mr. Speaker, if there's a question, I'll take it. If not, I'll ask for your favorable consideration. I'll yield the will.
Do you yield for any questions?
Yes, sir. I'll take one or two.
Chair recognizes Representative Clark to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
I noticed on line 57 that we added the COVID-19 vaccine mRNA to this list, but we did not add the vector, which would have been the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Can you just explain so that everyone's clear why or how this list was made and why that might have been excluded?
Yes, I will. This list comes to us from the Georgia Drugs and Narcotics Agency in consultation with GBI. And mostly we're dealing with the controlled substances and the illegal drugs that we want to try to get off the street, and just enables them to do their job more effectively. Some of these drugs are basically what they were, but there'll be a little tweak to the molecular makeup, and that's what we're trying to get to this. But we'll also, every year, we'll have a new update just like this, and we'll take your question and your interest and have a conversation with them to try to make sure we do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No further questions.
Thank you.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 963. The ayes are 157, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1089.
House Bill 1089 by Representative Smith and 133rd and others to be entitled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 9, Title 48, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to road tax on motor carriers so as to increase the penalty for certain violations of registration requirements. This bill then referred to the Committee on Motor Vehicles. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Vance Smith to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, House Bill 1089 deals with one item. Over the past year, there have been 873 violations of registration of motor carriers in the state of Georgia. And talking with the Department of Revenue, 90% of those violations come from out of state. So the penalty has been $25. Now, my observation would be they'd rather ask forgiveness than pay their dues on the registration, so they just take a chance going through Georgia. And when they get stopped for not having that registration, it's $25. We looked at surrounding states, and we're going from $25 to $145, which is the same as South Carolina. The law-abiding citizens that register their vehicles, it doesn't affect them at all. It's just the ones that do not abide by the law. So I'd ask you your favorable consideration, and Mr. Speaker, if there are no questions, I'll yield the will.
You have no questions. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 1089. The ayes are 151, the nays are 6. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1154.
House Bill 1154 by Representative Carson, 46, and others to be titled an act to amend an act creating the Board of Commissioners of Cobb County. This bill has been referred to the Committee on Governmental Affairs. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman Carson to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. I present to you House Bill 1154. This is obviously a reapportionment year. This is the reapportionment of the Cobb County Board of Commissioners and their districts. Currently, Cobb County is a 3-2 Democrat county. President Biden won Cobb County. This maintains that 3-2 Democrat majority on the Cobb County Commission. As it's currently stands right now, there's 2 county commissioners that are Dem, 2 that are Republican, and a county chair that is elected at large, of course, and Democrat. Thus, this map reflects the political composition of the county. It maintains communities of interest for Northwest Cobb, including Ackworth, West Marietta, and so forth. Northeast Cobb, where I live, and Johnson's Ferry Road, East Marietta. Southwest Cobb, including Mableton, Austell, and a middle of Cobb district that includes the urbanization along I-75, all the way from the Battery, Cumberland Mall area, all the way up to Town Center. And by the way, this map has been done with less than 1/4 of 1% deviation. You know, many times when these maps are done, their attempt to reclaim some sort of political control over the governing body. This is a 3-2 Democrat majority district, and under this map, it will very likely stay a 3-2 district. Like I said, 3-2 commission, Democrat commission majority. Like I said, President Biden won Cobb County in 2020. What the maps do is they bring together, like I said, spheres of influence and communities of interest. Churches, schools, other activities, centers that are common across the community. There's been a fair amount of politicization in regard to one commissioner that has moved within District 2. She actually moved 7-8 miles from an area of support to an area of Northeast Cobb, and actually ended up living outside. She moved as a result of the urbanization from Smyrna to Northeast Cobb. Commissioner Richardson ended up living outside the new District 2 boundaries. This does not prevent her whatsoever from continuing in her present role as commissioner. She has numerous options as to how to remain on the District 2 representative on the board. There's been some discussion in committee in regard to how this is abolishing an office or abolishing a term. That's not what this does at all. She is fully able to continue serving in her position. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to take a question, but if there are no questions, I know that there might be some other speakers for this bill. I regret that we can't run this through local legislation, but not even our county is able to do so on a partisan basis, even on the Senate side. So, because we have a 3-3 split over there as well. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to take a question. Otherwise, I will yield the well.
Do you yield for questions?
I'll yield for one question, sir.
Chair recognizes the whip of the Minority Caucus, Representative Wilkerson, to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield for just 2 questions?
Yes, absolutely. To my friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you mentioned the partisanship. Is that kind of the driving force to kind of keep the balance in same by keeping the partisan alignment?
The driving force here was to keep communities of interest together: Northwest Cobb, Northeast Cobb, Southwest Cobb, and the growth and urbanization along the I-75 corridor, those areas and communities of interest.
Okay, and one last question, if you
Sure.
yield. So, was there any effort at all, and we're going to hear on this map that you couldn't come to an agreement, and then on the school board map, we're going to hear shortly that the school board approved that map. Was there any attempt at all to try to work with the Democrats on this legislation? And the reason I ask that is that I'm not aware of any time that I've been here, that I've watched this legislature, that we have ever done this. And so I'm just curious, was there any effort at all to try to compromise?
I can't speak to that. I think there are other speakers coming forward to talk to that. The reapportionment is always an interesting process, And I regret that it has to be come to this way, but unfortunately, not even our county commission had a unanimous vote on this. They were split along party lines as well. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I will yield the well. Like I said, I know the hour is getting late and there are other speakers on the bill.
All right, we do have other speakers, and I would remind those that wish to speak, those speaking in opposition will have a collective total of 30 minutes. They can allocate that amongst themselves as they see fit, and the same will apply to those speaking for the bill. Chair recognizes Representative Anulowicz to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Friends, I rise before you today from a place of frustration and exhaustion. I imagine you are all tired of hearing from me. Cobb County issues are indeed consuming what seems to be an inordinate amount of our time. I rise before you today as Vice Chair of the Cobb County Legislative Delegation. I have lived in Cobb County for more than 20 years. For almost 15 of those years, I have represented my community in public office. By community, I mean the diverse and dynamic population, the people and the businesses that call Smyrna, Fair Oaks, and the Cumberland area home. We believe in our community. We support our public schools. We cheer together for the Campbell High School Spartans, who are getting their second shout out in as many weeks. They deserve it. They're awesome. We roared together in victory when the Braves won the World Series. When those Lockheed C-130s fly low over our homes when they make that final approach to Dobbins, we wink to each other about that sweet sound of freedom. These are just some of what make up the heart and soul of my community. We are indeed a community of interest. What did I not mention as the heart of my community? A road. I have colleagues in this delegation who actually genuinely believe, while ensuring, by the way, that their communities are nestled snug as a bug, whole in their entirety in one commission district, that the true defining trait of my community is Interstate 75. A road, a massive highway that roars with the constant cacophony of commerce and commuters. While I-75 is unquestionably a critical commercial artery, it is by no means the stuff that defines a community. My community is in fact bisected in both of the maps we're discussing in this chamber today. We've heard a lot about the communities and cities that are kept whole with these maps. In committee, we heard about cities that do not yet even exist that are kept whole within these maps. While my community is divided, my city divided, do not be persuaded that these maps we are about to vote on today, that this commission map we are about to vote on in just a moment, prioritizes in any way communities of interest, because they do not. What's more, from the time these maps were but a twinkle in my colleagues' eyes, they were concealed. They were concealed from the public, they were concealed from the commissioners and the school board members, and they were concealed from the delegation. If this commission map is indeed a map that all residents in Cobb County can be proud of, why the opacity? Why offer zero opportunities for public input? This obfuscation is intensely discouraging and frustrating. Cobb County is a place that prides itself in transparency and accessibility, but this map process has been neither transparent nor accessible to the public. This was a process done in darkness, the culmination of which you are witnessing before you this afternoon in this chamber, and I am telling you, it is not who we are. It is not who we should strive to be. It is certainly not anything to be proud of. On your desks, you each have a statement from Cobb Commission Chairman Lisa Cupid. I hope you will take a moment to read it. Of note, she says, no pothole is seeking an R or D for resolution. She continues that these maps undermine the respectfulness of the elected leadership of this county when it fully draws someone out of an area that they have been elected to represent. It also furthers political polarization when districts must be drawn that are either Republican or Democrat and not a combination of both, which can result in balanced thought within the leaders that represent them. Again, that statement is on all of your desks. We are about to vote on maps that I maintain are not the product of balanced thought. No. They are the product of fear. Fear of waning influence. The fear that happens when someone realizes they might be at risk of losing power. Fear is indeed a powerful motivator. Fear is why we see a map that brazenly and utterly unnecessarily targets an incumbent. It is why we see a map that tries to convince us that an interstate highway is the defining characteristic of a community. I stand before you today as your friend and your colleague and as someone who, along with my Democratic colleagues in the Cobb delegation, has done her level best to foster a map process that is open, transparent, and collaborative. What we are about to vote on is none of those things, and I urge you to join me in voting no. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Representative Nguyen to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There were times in my life where I wasn't particularly the best student. In college, I was waiting tables at night, learning how to be on my own for the first time. There were times in which I was unprepared for class, and that lack of preparedness was met with accountability and consequences from my teachers. They did not cover up for me, make excuses for me, or give me the grades I didn't deserve. That's how it works in the real world for the most part. If we are unprepared in the workplace or elsewhere, we are often held accountable for that. It's understandably hard for the public to see that those rules don't apply at the General Assembly. And that's exactly what we saw last week in committee when this bill was presented. It is right and fair for the public to demand that elected officials take our job seriously, especially when it comes to decisions like local redistricting, which impact the future of over 750,000 residents in Cobb County. But as lawmakers, we're not required by law or by rules to be prepared. But we are required to adhere to the standards set forth by law. And when this bill was presented in committee, the bill sponsor said, "I've never heard of packing and cracking." Section 2 of the Federal Voting Rights Act prohibits any electoral practice or procedure that minimizes or cancels the voting strength of members of racial minority. It's called vote dilution. Cracking and packing has been historically used to disenfranchise black voters and other voters of color. So I'd like to re-ask the question that was never answered in committee. You've stated you've never heard the terms packing and cracking before. As you know, when maps are drawn, we do have to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act, which say you cannot pack or crack. So how can we members be confident that is done in your proposal if you don't even know what those terms are? I never received an answer, unless you count laughter, because all questions were shut down after that. And that's not the only question that remains unresolved. This map draws Commissioner Jerica Richardson out of her district. She was duly elected to serve in 2024. So what happens to Commissioner Jerica Richardson if she is unable to move? OCGA 1-3-11, no office to which a person has been elected to shall be abolished, nor the term of the office shortened or lengthened by local or special act during the term for which person was elected, unless the same shall be approved by the people of the jurisdiction affected in a referendum on the question. This map shortens the term of Commissioner Richardson. When I asked in committee, what happens if she is unable to move? I was told she should just pick up and move again, like we all can on a whim. Would it not have been easier to draw a map that allows Commissioner Richardson to continue to serve the people who elected her? Instead, the options are this. She will be forced to move. If she's unable to do so, this will be litigated in court, and that cost will be passed on to the voters in Cobb County. It's not just fiscally irresponsible, it's very likely to be found unconstitutional in the court of law. So I will be voting against this bill today because of the content of the bill and because of the process that was used to get this map in front of us. The idea that one representative can circumvent the will of the Board of Commissioners, the majority of the Cobb delegation, that is anti-democratic. This is the installation of minority rules. It is a dangerous precedent that should be rejected by all of us, no matter what side of the aisle we belong. But instead, we are met with gross indifference because we have learned here at the General Assembly that you don't have to be prepared, you don't have to answer questions, you don't have to even understand state law or the legal requirements of the Voting Rights Act. Because your bill, it will be passed anyway. Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Representative Mary Frances Williams to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I'm from Cobb, as I've told many of you many times. And some of you know that my father was a state representative in this House. And as much as he loved serving in public office, and he really did love it, it broke his heart, literally. He died at age 50 after his second heart attack. So I myself entered politics with open eyes. I didn't expect fairness or kindness, although I've been on the receiving end of both. I know that there's nothing I can say to change your vote, so I'm not going to talk very long. I've literally been told by members I respect that testifying doesn't change the vote, which is really kind of sad because I remember back to the days of Denmark Groover, and I think he changed a few votes. We're here with this version of the bill because we never had a chance. I think we could have worked this out. There was willingness on the part of one of the Republican commissioners to work something out. And the truth is, we never had that chance. We were never given that chance because it was pretty well known and said to us about the other map that you'll consider for Cobb that they didn't have to talk with us, the Democratic members of my group. They didn't have to talk to us. They didn't have to work with us because they were going to get their bill passed without talking to us or without dealing with us. Now, I don't expect fair all the time, but my God, that's just not fair, not to even give us a chance to work it out. And the arrogance to say to us, we don't have to talk to you because we're going to go over your heads and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. So I just want to say to you, I wish testimony did change votes. I wish we still had that kind of House. But I'm okay either way. But I did want to share with you that it's hard working when there's not fairness. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Setzler to speak to the bill.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I want to address this issue. I appreciate Chairman Carson teeing this up, and I want to really speak to the heart of some of the things that were said and some of the things that have been suggested. I won't speak to everything that's been said this week because this body, I think, has been dishonored by the posture and the words and candidly the silliness of some of our members, both in legislative proceedings and in public. But I won't go there. That's not appropriate for us to speak to. I'll leave that up to every member to evaluate for themselves. What I want to speak to today is the fact that before you in House Bill 1154 are fair, balanced maps for the Cobb County Board of Commissioners. They're maps that recognize the diversity of Cobb County. They're maps that are, although these were not the sole consideration, they're politically balanced. They provide this balance that folks in Cobb County can look at and say, you know, that makes sense to me. When I think about the rural suburban nature of West Cobb, there's a district in West Cobb. When I think about the suburban East Cobb, there's a district for East Cobb. When I think about the high density commercial Central Cobb area, there's a commission district that represent that communities of interest. And of course, the suburban, slightly more urbanized South Cobb County has a community interest that recognizes them. Any citizen who knows Cobb County can say, you know, that map looks fair. You know, the folks in that area tend to think the same way. They're going to want to have single-family residential and quality of life commercial around them, and this map recognizes that. It recognizes the truest park and the sort of the Central Cobb commercial area that's vibrant, that's growing, and a lot of young millennials, and a lot of the vibrancy in Cobb County that's new growth that we're so very proud of. But friends, the suggestion somehow that this process has somehow been sidestepped, or that there's been that this map represents anything other than a fair, balanced, appropriate map for Cobb County is irony that I think is almost deafening. You know, as we think about the representation here in Cobb County, this idea that the minority party has this grip on Cobb County, at the beginning of this session, when this map was filed, there were 7 Republican members who lived in Cobb County of this body. There were 6 Democrat members of this body who lived in Cobb County. Now, because of the way the delegation works, there are members who live in Fulton County who represent parts of their district touch Cobb County. That creates this very, very narrow balance of 8 Democrats, 7 Republicans in the Cobb County Commission, or the Cobb County delegation process. And on the Senate side, it's 3 Republicans live in Cobb County, 1 Democrat senator lives in Cobb County. Again, but with Fulton County senators, it's a 3-3 circumstance. I share that to say Cobb is a very politically balanced place, and this map delivers for Cobb County's citizen a map that we can be very proud of that maintains that very balanced political nature, and in addition to those commonly understood communities of interest. What happened, however, and I won't mention names because the people that were part of this are in this room, there was a scheming partisan huddle, not by the majority party, but by the minority party in December. In fact, I've got an email to that effect right here, ladies and gentlemen. And on this email, there were 4 members of the minority caucus. In fact, members who spoke here today were in this email. You know, one of the members spoke about some things happened in a dark room. Well, I can tell you in the dark room, members of the minority party were scheming to put together a map that one of our members in the minority caucus has proposed to create a total 5-0 Democrat takeover of the Cobb County Commission. It was engineered to be a 5-0 takeover of this commission. They looked at trend lines, they looked at where the politics were, they said, you know what, we're going to create a map that maybe has 1 Republican representative now, but we see, based on our modeling, this will be a complete Democrat takeover by 2026. In fact, it was very artfully done. If you understand the way this process is done and you study their work, it was pretty ingenious work, actually. I'll give them credit for it. But in that dark room that the earlier representative was talking about, members of the Democratic Party were scheming and putting together a singularly partisan map that would take a county that has 53% Democrat, 47% Republican representation and deliver a 5-0 control to their party through this redistricting process. It's interesting to folks who are the most shrill and most ugly in their presentations and their criticism of these maps are themselves the ones in that very dark room scheming a complete partisan takeover of Cobb County. I'm proud to say that the majority party, being magnanimous, is not even drawing a map for Cobb County that would likely leave a Republican majority on the county commission. In fact, members of the majority party here that I represent and is supporting HB 1154 have been criticized by some by saying, wait a minute, why wasn't there more of an effort to try to wrest control back from a Democrat-controlled county commission? The answer is that's not what this process is about. This process is about fair representation that fairly represents communities of interest that likely, when anyone looks at the communities of interest that's manifest in HB 1154, folks can say, that makes sense. That looks like Cobb County. And by the way, it's not seeking to change the Democrat partisan control of our county commission. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that same magnanimity, if you will, that I'm proud to be a part of, that I think Chairman Carson is wise to have supported in his filing of HB 1154. It's that exact sense that the very critics of HB 1154 had their very hands caught in the political cookie jar in this email that says it's important to get your final feedback before we socialize this with the rest of the delegation and the public. The only members on this email, I won't mention names because we don't do that in the Wellers, 4 members of the minority caucus scheming in that dark room in December of 2021 for this decidedly partisan map, Mr. Chairman. Friends, HB 1154 is something we can all be very proud of. We don't call names out in this place, but we do call facts. And I will tell you that when you think about the circumstance that's being addressed here, and you think about the ugliness that's been presented in committee, you think about this, the ugly claims and the half-truths that have been shared, I think members of the public deserve better. And I can tell you for sure Cobb County deserves better. You might even see histrionics and excited folks waving their arms in this very well here today, but I can tell you the facts still remain. What we have before us is a fair, balanced county commission map that everybody can be proud of, that is in fact based on fairness and representing the process that we can all be very proud of. Now, the issue was raised, Mr. Speaker, and I know we're short on time, of one commissioner who chose to move within her district 4 months after being reelected. I want you guys to imagine, ladies and gentlemen of the House, I want you to imagine somebody that when they were elected was sitting right here where Houston Gaines sits. This is, if you can imagine this being Cobb County, they were elected, they live where Houston, relative to this chamber, about where Houston's seat is. And if this is Cobb County, they moved 4 months after being elected way back there to about where Bill Yurt is back there. And I can see Bill over there by the door, my friend Bill, okay? Moving dramatically across their district. It's someone's prerogative to do that, but when someone moves from where they live when elected, up there in a precinct next to one of their other sitting commissioners, are we as a delegation, are we as legislators to take the representative lines of 800,000 people in Cobb County and twist and bend and contort those lines to reach up in a big arm and drag them into a district because where they chose to move? Ladies and gentlemen of the House, when I talk to my constituents, folks are mad that politicians self-deal to themselves. We're called to be statesmen. The idea that we would draw maps around where one person and their real estate agent decided to put in a real estate offer is simply nonsense. It's beneath this body, and the fact that 1154 gives a mechanism for that commissioner to continue to serve for the remainder of their term, I think is the basis of fairness in which we're working, and that gives her a path forward to continue to represent her district should she choose. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I just want to say to you, I am disappointed at members of this body. The fake outrage that's been generated, the ugly things that have been said. I won't even read the words that were said in Cobb County this weekend in a community gathering. But the reckless divisiveness that I believe denigrates what has historically been a true fight for freedom and justice for all people is something that this process is, I think, candidly, should not be sullied by. And I think HB 1154 is something we can all be very proud of. And with that, Mr. Speaker, yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. So we're going on now to the minority report, a total of 20 minutes. The chair recognizes Representative Allen for the minority report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm going to try to tone down the fake outrage that we've heard and try not to flail my arms. But law and order, rules, rule of law, all those are words that we hear spoken and directed at others, but used by most. And I'm going to come back to that. But today is a very sad day. A sadness that I, like many others in this chamber, are uniquely qualified and positioned to feel. See, I've been a minority my entire life. And I'm sort of used to it, but the problem is with this comes some very relative superpowers. I can spot things. I can sense things. And I can feel things. Now, some of you in this room are experiencing being a minority for maybe the first time. So I get it. It's scary. You get a little frustrated when you see rules that are designed to let you work, but never let you win. It's hard to go up against rules and structures where you have an appearance for fairness, but a reality of failure. So I get it. I've been there. I constantly occupied that space. Now, I know I'm going to get accused of playing the race card, but let me be clear. I am only playing the hand I was dealt. Plus, I'm used to that. When uncomfortable truths are spoken, that seems to be the default. In committee, a colleague of mine mentioned race, and I could see that people physically became uncomfortable. But what I want you to understand is how uncomfortable it is for someone in the minority to realize these truths in that moment and articulate it. It's not comfortable for either one of us. And this is an opportunity for us to do what's right and to not move forward with producing maps that impact so many who have shown up to vote and let their voice be heard. Now, you see, the majority came and talked about, local control and the fair process, but what we can clearly see, and the reason we're here today, is because that only takes effect when the locals need to be controlled. Once we start having electoral wins, we need to start reining that back. And as chair of the delegation, I knew that our process had to be above board. When I saw the memo from the leadership saying that all local bills will be treated as local, I had a little glimmer of hope. We talked with commissioners. We made their edits. We met with delegation members and the community just to make sure we had a chance at getting our maps passed. But when I saw comments in the press from my colleagues that ignored all of our work, when the emails went unresponded to, when meetings produced more and more no-shows, I knew we had no chance. Remember, I see things. In committee, this is where the reality really started to set in. There was one argument, and you've heard it today, that because of our delegation and two of our delegation members not living in Cobb County, their vote doesn't matter, it just doesn't count. Now, most of us in this chamber represent a county in which we don't live in. That's the nature of how these maps have been drawn. We also know that it was 7 times, and I'll include today as the 8th, 7 times over 2 hearings by 3 different presenters. It has been said that the Cobb delegation is a 7-6 majority of those who live in Cobb. This is clearly signifying that the other 2 members who represent their communities are less than, do not count as much. And then my other colleague talked earlier about when in committee the term cracking and packing was said. The presenter actually laughed because he didn't know that those were real terms, thought they were made up. When asked if he knew the Voting Rights Act and legal requirements, just shrugged his shoulders, said no, and proceeded to say this is a map that was fair because if they said the balance of power, their words, not mine. Also in committee, a commissioner that has been drawn out of her district was doxxed. A single female commissioner, they stood up and read off her address in an angry fit in order to incite some type of response. That is completely irresponsible. They also told her that if she wants to continue to serve, and they repeated it today, that she should not have bought a new home, even though that home is still in her district. As if it's that simple, I'll point out that no other commissioner is faced with this burden. I sense things. And to be clear, the balance of power that they talk about could have been achieved without this petty vindictive move. What is happening is an intentional target of a young, universally respected, progressive voice that they saw an opportunity to get out of her office 3 years early, 1 year into a 4-year term. And it's not just this one black female. In 2018, Lucy McBath won a congressional seat. She's been drawn out. In 2018, Sharice Davis, the first black female elected to the school board. In the maps you're going to hear later, drawn out. And in these commission maps, Jerica Richardson, drawn out. Now, not to mention, during committee, it was also stated that the location of the commissioners' homes were not a factor. However, last month, before anyone saw the maps, one of the members that you heard from today went to the press and said, I quote, she committed political suicide by moving, end quote. This is the same member that also told reporters that they did not have to work with Democrats in the delegation because they knew we would be here today. So the overtures about wanting to work together and the question asked of was there a reach out, I will answer that emphatically, no. So unfortunately, now I have to go back to my constituents who mobilized, energized, went out and selected their duly elected representatives and tell them that that vote really doesn't count. It doesn't matter. Because the majority has been able to strip us, the duly elected members of this delegation, of our ability to go out and do the work that you elected us to do. Once again, I feel things. So there's also been a reference to the emails. I want to speak on that for just 2 seconds. The member that spoke about emails that went out fails to neglect that the 4 members that were copied on the email that was sent to commissioners and to school board members about this process were members of the leadership. If you want to be in leadership, you should have run. The leadership of the Cobb delegation was elected unanimously. If you did not want that leadership, you could have said no. Or matter of fact, you could have showed up for a meeting. So what was our process? We went through and talked with commissioners and school board members. We then went to the delegation with proposed maps. We then went to a delegation meeting in which no one showed up from the other side, and then we had a community meeting where the maps could be discussed. We have followed the process every single step of the way, and if you feel like you've been cut out, welcome to the minority. So I want to close by just acknowledging that this has been set in motion for months. We knew we were not going to get a chance to do our jobs like our colleagues in the majority. We're not going to be able to respond to the will of our voters. But I will tell you, our votes are under attack. Our ability to do our work is being diminished. And it's maddening, it's frustrating, but unfortunately it's nothing new. The majority, I know you won't join me in voting no, but you should. If you really like rules and order, then restore it. If you don't like to be called a thief, stop stealing. And if you don't want to be accused of doing things based on race, stop that too. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield the balance of my time to Representative Wilkerson.
9 minutes left. Chair recognizes the Minority Caucus Whip, Representative Wilkerson, for the balance of the minority report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Man, was I wrong, and I admit it. I believe that we were going to follow the same rules that we followed for probably 40 years, at least, where you win your county, you work with everybody, you get a map that you can agree on. This week, I have been wrong. I've been called a liar. I've had the state troopers called on me. Well, that was last week, but it kind of runs together when the cops are coming after you. We have weaponized the police way too many times. The rules should apply to everyone. I agree, elections do have consequences, but rules should not. The people that we represent should not. And I wasn't going to speak until I got called a liar again. Let me tell you about that email that was found, because people are asking about an email that was found. The email wasn't found. We sent it to them. The email was sent to, let me pull up my glasses so I can tell you who it went to, from Representative Eric Allen on December 20th. And you all should have it, because I think it's very important that you guys know the facts. You can vote however you want, however you're told to, but you should have the facts. On December 20th, Eric Allen, the chairman of our delegation, sent an email to Lisa Cupid, Democrat, Kelly Gambrill, Republican, Jerica Richardson, Democrat, Joanne Burrell, Republican, Monique Sheffield, Democrat. Copied Terry Lulowitz, Mary Francis. So my colleague didn't tell you all that. It was never lost. We sent it to both parties. And what he said was, he walked through this process. The leadership got together. I've had experience drawing the maps. I was involved as well. And they came with the map. Then they sent it to the commissioners. And I remember we had our hearing, and I talked to the Republican commissioners, because I don't meddle in local politics. I remember before I even got here, they say, stay away from local stuff if you can. Stay out of that area. And I tried to. I support them, Democrat and Republican. I would love to keep things kind of the same. Cobb County is doing great. The county, the school board, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I asked each commissioner, how do you like the map? They loved it until they started looking at numbers and doing analysis on political data. And then when we had our meeting, Commissioner Joanne Burrell came down here with the 2015 map, or some year that was not applicable anymore, but she said, I want to make it look like this. And we said, well, Commissioner Burrell, you can't. But what we will do is we will walk you down there. The chairman of our delegation walked her down there and said, whatever we can do to help you represent your community, we will do that. So let's be very clear. Only one group had at public hearings. That was the delegation. Only one group released their maps to the whole universe. That was the delegation. Only one group released it to both Democrats and Republicans. If you ask my colleagues in the back that is Democrats, they didn't see this map any time before the Republicans did, if they weren't in leadership. We weren't huddling in the corner, cutting deals, because Cobb is a great place to live, and if you lived there, you wouldn't know that. But you don't. You're just coming to push a button and take over our county. You don't live there. You don't know where Hurt Road is. You might, because you might pass through to get to the mall or to a Braves game, or maybe you come into the stadium to see. But, you know, every morning we ask each other, how you doing? Well, I'm going to be honest with you. This shit sucks, and I apologize for that. But I go to my wife, and she doesn't want to hear about this. And I apologize. She doesn't want to hear about this. I broke the quorum just like the person that's been calling you a liar. But at the end of the day, it is frustrating. It is frustrating, and I do apologize for that. But at the end of the day, it's hard to go home and tell people that you serve with some great people when they do this to your county, when they do this to people you represent. So with that, push the button. It should be about 96, yes, 95, yes. 60-something, no. And then we'll go back home and explain why we thought this was the right thing to do, even though they had no hearings, no public input. It was strictly drawn by partisan reasons. And I'm going to ask for a ruling shortly, if I'm allowed. And I'll turn it back over. But thank you for the time, and thank you all for listening. But it's frustrating. Thank you, and I yield the well.
We're going on now to the chairman's time. Total of 20 minutes for the chair's time. Chair recognizes Chairman Darlene Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to report that this bill had a thorough vetting in our subcommittee, and it was again heard and then passed in the full committee. I will tell you our committee follows decorum, and each member was allowed to vote as they wished to. This map met the criteria required by the Legislative and Congressional Redistricting Office, and I will yield the remainder of my time to Chairman Carson.
Chair recognizes Chairman Carson for the balance of the chairman's time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to Chair Lady Taylor for all you've been through for this. You've been a role model to follow. I just want to reiterate a few points. These are fair maps. Number one, these are areas, they're drawn with communities of interest in mind, and they reflect the political composition of Cobb County. And just on a personal note, I apologize that this whole process has had to take slander, language, and so forth. Cobb County is better than this, and frankly, to my fellow colleagues, we have not shown you that. But Cobb County as a whole, I assure you, is better than this, and this House deserves better. I do ask for your favorable consideration for this map, and I yield the will.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Previous question has been ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Representative Anulowicz rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Yes, sir, and apologies if I sound shrill. If this ingenious scheming took place, wouldn't the resulting map that the Democrats drew have changed more than 9 precincts?
I truly don't know the answer to that question. Chair recognizes, what purpose does Representative Walensky rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that one of the members who spoke in the well when they were talking about inappropriateness or ridiculousness may have been talking about when he jumped into a press conference he wasn't invited to and got on the microphone?
I couldn't hear your inquiry. What purpose does Representative McLeod rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it true that the chairman still doesn't know what is in Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act and what packing and cracking is?
I don't know what any member of this body knows or does not know. Chair recognizes Chairman Setzler, or what purpose do you rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that all the concerns with respect to the Voting Rights Act were very well managed in this, and in fact, the only minority influence district went from 46.3% African American to 46.7%, and that is a model of how we should proceed with drawing fair maps.
The gentleman so states. Final parliamentary inquiry. What purpose does Representative Wilkerson rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
State your inquiry.
I was wondering if the Speaker could make a ruling on 18.1 where the line says that the committee shall observe such rules in considering legislation when the delegation has submitted rules that require a hearing.
That applies only to the Intergovernmental Coordination Committee, not to Governmental Affairs. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 1154. The ayes are 95, the nays are 64. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. What purpose does Chairman Carson rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
I move that House Bill 1154 be immediately transmitted to the Georgia Senate.
The gentleman has moved that House Bill 1154 be immediately transmitted to the Senate. Is there objection? There is objection. Does the gentleman move? Gentleman moves. All those in favor of immediate transmittal will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the gentleman's motion. The ayes are 95, the nays are 61. This bill is on its way to the state Senate. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 1028.
House Bill 1028 by Representative Earhart of the 36th and others to be entitled an act to amend an act providing for the election of members of the Board of Education of Cobb County. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Governmental Affairs, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Earhart to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring before you for your consideration House Bill 1028, which sets forth the new district lines for the Cobb County Board of Education. The map achieves the goals of those who drew and support it, which is, number 1, local control. Number 2, legal compliance. 3, equal representation. And 4, the stability of the school district as a whole and the 7 individual posts that make it up. The local Cobb Board of Education voted to accept this map after requesting that a plan be drawn that first and foremost complies with the Georgia Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, and the Voting Rights Act. A few facts about the map. The population deviation for each of the 7 posts is very minimal, less than 0.5%. The plan potentially creates 3 minority opportunity voting districts, posts 2, 3, and 6. Each post is represented by, or at least contains, 2 high schools. That was a request and a requirement, a preference of the school board. The board considered communities of interest. I'd like to describe those as it relates to a school district. For example, the cities within Cobb County falling entirely within an individual school board post was a plus. The city of Acworth is completely within the city of Post 1. Powder Springs, where I live, all within the city of Post 3. The city of Austell, mostly in Post 3. Vinings, the future city of Vinings, 100% inside Post 6. The future city of East Cobb, completely inside Post 5. The future city of Mapleton, largely in Post 2. The future city of Lost Mountain, also largely in Post 7. It's worth noting that within the map, other things that were considered. Number 1, high school attendance zones. That is important. Those are largely represented by the same member. School feeder patterns were also considered and reflected appropriately on this map. The current map kept every member who was eligible for re-election inside their same post. That's a difficult job given where some of the members do live close to each other and the natural population shifts that have occurred over the past 10 years. Ladies and gentlemen, as a 45-year resident of Cobb County and the proud product myself of the Cobb County public school system, I graduated from Osborne High School. I won't tell you the year. It is my honor to carry this bill and to ask for your favorable consideration of this map, which is both equitable, legally sound. Mr. Speaker, I am happy to yield for questions.
You do not have any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. I yield the well.
Lady has yielded the well. We have others that wish to speak on the bill. Chair recognizes Representative Roberts to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, colleagues. I don't live in Cobb County, and my district doesn't actually include Cobb County, so I don't really have a dog in the fight as to the actual maps that are approved today. But I do want to talk about the process or deviation therefrom that has been happening in this chamber because it affects every single person in this room as well as every single citizen we represent. In America, there are certain principles upon which our democratic republic was founded, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, where the majority rules and a respect for the rule of law. I heard the majority leader reference the rule of law earlier, so I hope we can all agree how important it is. These principles have given me comfort throughout my life because it gives us a predictable framework for functioning in a civilized society. From those basic tenets, we write laws, rules, and bylaws to provide further guidance. If we abandon these principles, it produces chaos. Imagine if, when we drive, we know that there are rules about who has to yield at an intersection. And if we abandon those, it would, again, produce chaos. It undermines our basic contract with each other to respect the rule of law. This body, and specifically the majority party, has a long history of preserving home rule and local control. Legislation impacting local governments or local bills are by our own state house rules supposed to be left to legislators elected by the people who live in the affected locality. It's both to avoid having partisan fights over the basic governmental services these local governments provide, and to ensure that the citizens in those localities have the ability to hold those leaders accountable at the ballot box when they don't deliver those services. Specifically with regard to local redistricting, I'm told in the history of the House, these local maps have always traveled through the process as local bills, not general bills. We have always been, it's really distracting when people talk loud. We've always been a rubber stamp, essentially, for the maps that are drawn by the local commissioner school board with input from the public. In fact, the last redistricting year in 2011, all of the more than 230 bills were brought as local bills. So I have to ask myself, why would the majority party of this House abandon its own rules, its local delegation bylaws, and a long-standing precedent of local courtesy and deference? During the Governmental Affairs Committee hearings, we asked Republican sponsors of these bills several questions. Was the map the subject of any public hearings? No. Did you consult with other members of your delegation? No. Didn't your local delegations pass rules that say how local legislation should be treated? Yes, but we can do this when there isn't a consensus. Do your bylaws say you need a unanimous vote? No, a majority. So shouldn't you just have accepted the vote of the majority? Why did you feel the need to go around your delegation, draw your own maps, and ignore the will of a majority of the citizens of your county? because the county has changed. When asked how it had changed, no tangible response was given. All right, let's look objectively at what changed. I feel like we need to break it down to Sesame Street level. One of these things does not look like the other. We are doing this in Gwinnett and Cobb counties so far. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see in these counties that demographics have shifted recently, and the majority of citizens in these counties have duly elected more Democrats, and specifically black and brown Democrats, to local commissions and school boards. Cobb specifically recently elected Democratic leadership to the county commission for the first time in a generation, an all-female commission, and black leadership for the first time in its history. That shift is also reflected in the representation of the local delegations in this House, who now have the majority in those delegations. Now, before you dismiss me as, was it silly, and get defensive at my even hinting that race has anything to do with your deviation from longstanding rules and precedent, I'm inviting those of you who look like me, because we don't get up here and talk about race a whole lot, to just listen for a minute, because it might help you understand why our friends of color in this chamber feel like they do. The state's history around local rule tells us a lot. Local control historically has been a dominant theme in Southern political identity and very much is associated with the perpetration of racial slavery, racial segregation, and racial discrimination. For example, the Georgia legislature demonstrated an acute awareness of such local independence after Brown versus Board of Education in 1954, when you know what it did? It enacted legislation to defund any local school system that desegregated, to provide vouchers to parents who sent their children to private schools that arose in a desegregated school system, and to allow public school teachers to maintain participation in the state teacher retirement system if they moved to private schools in desegregated districts. Boy, that sounds similar to legislation pending in front of this legislature right now, some almost 70 years later. In response to Brown, our very own Georgia Senator Walter F. George presented the Southern Manifesto, which I'll paraphrase. It essentially said, "Why are you outside agitators, federal courts, Northerners, coming into Georgia threatening revolutionary changes in our public school system and destroying amicable relations between the white and Negro races that have been created through 90 years of patient effort by the good people of both races?" This reaction combines the false narrative of amicable relations between the races with an appeal to local control threatened by outsiders. This is the classic plea for local control that was not backed by a legitimate local consensus given the exclusion of minority voices. I could go on, there's lots of examples. These are just a few where history shows local control was used to oppress minority voices here in Georgia. And today we hear similar false narratives under this gold dome about why we shouldn't teach divisive history. Because good people on both sides don't need to relive history that makes them uncomfortable. Well, I think people that look like me need to try and walk a mile in the shoes of our colleagues of color in this chamber and try to imagine how uncomfortable racial oppression has been for them simply because their skin is a different color. Our kids deserve an honest history that includes America's triumphs as well as its failures. That's how we ensure those uncomfortable events aren't repeated. So when my colleagues and I say this sudden abandonment of local control and precedent sounds in racial oppression, we don't say it to be punitive or dramatic. Georgia has a long history of it. And a member in this House wasn't shy at all when he said, "We're all for local control until the locals get out of control." How are the locals out of control? Are you really saying that electing Democrats, and specifically Democrats of color, is defined as being out of control? This sudden deviation from process sends a message to more than 750,000 citizens in Cobb County and more than 1 million in Gwinnett that if you live in a county where the majority of its citizens duly elect Democrats to lead it, the minority in that county should have the choice to reject their elections. That's dangerous, y'all. And what's even worse, those of you who are using majority control in this House to subvert local control, you can't even be held accountable at the ballot box. You are subverting the voices of citizens who do not have the opportunity to vote you out. That is anti-democratic and sounding more in authoritarianism. We just can't change the rules if we don't like the results. I know y'all love a good football analogy, and my friend Rep McClain likened this to moving the goalpost in the middle of the game. I have to believe that some of you agree with me, that you're sitting there thinking, boy, I don't want her to come down to South Georgia and tell my folks what to do. Today, we passed 31 local redistricting bills on the local calendar. We have passed hundreds thus far during this session. Why are those legislators given the privilege of our long-standing process and rules? Why does majority rule in our delegations only apply to Republican majority counties? By forcing these school board maps on Cobb County, you are saying that only the majority party in this chamber are allowed to be full members of this legislature. Our children are watching us, and no matter how many books we ban, they will see this anti-democratic change of the rules exactly for what it is. Y'all, it's time that we agree that the rule of law and our social contract with each other, that the majority rules must take precedent over politics and party. Otherwise, I fear we will never be able to agree on anything else. I yield the well, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, that is all of the speakers on the bill. And my understanding, the minority report has been waived. So is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 1028. The ayes are 94, the nays are 59. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. What purpose does Representative Earhart rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
I move that HB 1028 be electronically transmitted to the Senate immediately.
Immediately transmitted, okay. The representative has moved that House Bill 1028, I'm sorry, be immediately transmitted to the Senate. Is there objection? There is objection. Does the lady move? The lady moves. All those in favor of immediate transmittal will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the lady's motion. The ayes are 94, the nays are 59, and the bill is on its way to the state Senate immediately. House Bill 961 will be postponed until the next legislative day. The chair recognizes Representative Tyler Paul Smith for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 907.
Clerk will read the caption.
Amend Code Section 21-540 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the conduct of special primaries and special elections generally.
The chair recognizes Representative Tyler Paul Smith to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of this body, I bring to you House Bill 907. The only change is how the paragraph is written. It's the same as what this body had passed out earlier this month. And, Mr. Speaker, if there are no questions, I will yield the well.
You do not appear to have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 907, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 122, the nays are 31, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 907. What purpose does Representative Smith rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move this House immediately transmit House Bill 907 to the governor.
I'm going to rule your motion out of order. All right. Chair recognizes Chairman Setzler for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 841.
Chairman Setzler has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 841. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 841 by Representative Dollar, the 45th, Cooper, the 43rd, Setzler, the 35th, to be entitled an act to incorporate the city of East Cobb.
Chair recognizes Chairman Setzler to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, 841 is the city of East Cobb. There was some debate and some discussion here on the floor when this passed the first time about the requirement for the specific council members to live in the geography of their districts. The bill was drawn broadly to do that, but there was language put in Senate committee to more clearly specify that each council member must live physically within their district. That was clarified in Senate committee, and Mr. Speaker, that was the only change. And with that, I'd be glad to yield to questions if there are any.
Do not appear to have any questions.
Urge your favorable consideration of HB 841.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 841, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Better keep it. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 96, the nays are 62, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 841. Clerk will read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions.
Honoring the life and memory of William C. Chris Giles. Honoring the Middle Georgia State University School of Aviation, recognizing February 15, 2022 as Aerospace Day at the state capitol. Congratulating and commending Georgia State University College of Law on its 40th anniversary. Recognizing and commending Takeda Pharmaceuticals America Incorporated. Recognizing and commending Dr. Molly Howard, and for other purposes. That completes the reading of the privilege resolution.
Is there any objection to adopting the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. Mr. Clerk, you want to hold the tray up? The clerk has a tray full of both Senate and House local bills submitted by members of each party. I will entertain the procedure we have followed, which is to ask for unanimous consent that the rules of the House be temporarily suspended to allow these bills to be read for the first time and assigned to committee. They will all be assigned to the Intergovernmental Coordination Committee. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and it is so ordered. Going on now to announcements. If you have signed up for an announcement, take up position up front. Chair recognizes Chairman Corbett for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Motor Vehicles Committee will meet in the morning, 8 o'clock, 6:06. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Dickey for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Agriculture and Consumer Affairs will meet in the morning, 8 o'clock, 406 CLOB. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Gullett for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Governmental Affairs will be meeting today at room 506 CLOB. 506 CLOB, a meeting upon adjournment. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Gamble for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock in 133 Capitol, the fellowship will meet.
Chair recognizes Chairman Darlene Taylor for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker. The Life and Health Subcommittee will meet in the morning at 8 o'clock in 341. Thank you.
That completes our announcements. The chair recognizes the Majority Leader of the House for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand adjourned until 10:30 Tuesday, February the 15th, 2022.
The Majority Leader has moved that this House be adjourned until Tuesday, February 15th at 10:30 a.m. All those in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it, and this House will be adjourned until Tuesday at 10:30 a.m.